2, 1.
All right, good evening, everybody. So my name is Burt. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm also a recovering alcoholic. I've struggled with alcohol for most of my teenage and adult life. So first of all, let me just introduce myself again. So my name is Burt. I've been going to church probably just for about 2 years now in Jesus Centered Church. I was raised, so I grew up in Crown Point, New Mexico. My parents had 6 children. I was fortunate to have been brought into this world with an older twin brother, identical twin brother. His name is Kurt. Along with Kurt, I had 2 more older brothers, 1 older sister and 1 younger sister. Our parents made sure we were raised in a loving and caring home with discipline. My father, having been an alcoholic in his early years before I was born, found Jesus Christ through NAC, or Native American Church. My parents raised us through traditional Native American church using cedar and peyote to pray through the fireplace. From what I remember from my early childhood, I enjoyed it. Kurt and I were your typical naughty res boys. They called us double trouble. I knew my parents loved my brothers and sisters and I. They weren't abusive and always strived to give us a better life than they had. I remember having family meetings to discuss any issues or any plans that my parents had coming up. From what I remember, life was great. When I was in 3rd grade, my family took in my aunt and her 5 kids. My aunt's husband at the time was an abusive alcoholic. He beat her up pretty bad and she needed to leave that relationship. So my parents sat me and my brothers and sisters down and they asked us, hey, they have nowhere to go. They want to, we want to open our home to them. As a family, we all agreed and we said yes. So at the time, we lived in a 3-bedroom trailer. Before my aunt's family moved in with us, me and my twin brother and my 2 older brothers lived in 1 room. My oldest sister lived in her own room. My parents lived in a master bedroom with my younger sister. So when my aunt's family came in, there was 14 people living in a 3-bedroom trailer that we lived in. From what I remember, it was great. It was great living in that, growing up in that. When they moved in, all the boys lived in the living room. My aunt and her younger children took our old room. The girls lived in their room, and my parents stayed in their room with my younger sister. Growing up, it's important for my recovery to figure out, writing testimony. So first of all, this is my first testimony, and I'm grateful to, have it with you guys. I'm a very, kind of closed off person. So it's, this is a big step for me just to admit or tell you guys my story. Growing up, for this testimony, I had to think back, what happened, what was the point of why did I become an alcoholic? From what I remember, it was a great childhood. I have no issues. I wasn't abused. I wasn't, none of that happened to me. But when I'm thinking back, at the time, I was grateful that my cousins and my aunt moved in with us. But thinking back, I had that host mentality. My whole personality changed. For me personally, I had to withdraw my emotions. I buried deep emotions inside because, growing up, I remember, my older siblings or my parents telling me, hey, be grateful. They don't have their dad no more. They don't have a home no more. Be a host. And usually when you're a host, you treat your guests with respect. You put them first. You make them feel comfortable at home. So my aunt's family lived with us for about 6 years in that small trailer, So growing up, I learned to suppress my emotions. I learned how to, not explain myself. I held it all in. And, my parents, God bless them, when you have 12 kids in your house, it's very rarely to have that one-on-one time with you. So thinking back to my addiction, I guess, that's where it's trained from. I was, in my age group, I was the youngest boy, My twin brother was older and, everybody went to him first before me. Even growing up in school, all my friends that I had were his friends first. But in order for me to get those friends, I always fought with them. I got in a lot of fights growing up in grade school to high school. They, joked at me, because I was a younger twin brother. So my life growing up was I had to prove myself. Everywhere I went, I had to prove myself. Growing up at home, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys can relate to this, but most Native families, from what I experienced, from what I know, I never met a Native family that doesn't have alcoholics in their family. I've yet to meet a family that doesn't have some type of alcoholism in their family. So my family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, God bless their souls, I hope they find recovery as well. You know, growing up, you know, for most Native kids, you know, it's exposed. It's there. It's easy to get. It's easy to access. So growing up, you know, you know, at home I wasn't getting the attention I guess I felt like I needed. You know, at home is always fight for your food, fight for the couch, fight for the best spot in the house. It became a hassle for me. So, you know, I vented outward, you know, I started sleeping in my aunt's house, sleeping in my cousin's houses, and they were exposed to drinking at an early age too. I remember the first time I tasted alcohol, I believe in maybe 5th grade. One of my older cousins, you know, offered it to me. You know, one of my older cousins offered it to me, and I remember spitting it out after the first taste I had, thinking, you know, this stuff is disgusting, I'm never gonna drink it again. That didn't come true. So, you know, move forward in life, you know. I remember in high school, you know, no, not in high school, probably in 8th grade, I went camping with my cousins and they've been drinking before me. So they were hesitant to let me go on this camping trip with them. So I went with them on the camping trip, and, you know, they had a 30-pack of natural ice. And that was the first time I drank beer and got that buzz. And when I got that buzz, I was immediately hooked. I can't explain it, you know. I was immediately hooked, and, you know, I wanted more and more. Since then, I drank every weekend in high school throughout the rest of my life. I became a pretty functional alcoholic, you know. I went to school, I didn't miss class, but every weekend I yearned to drink, I yearned to go out, I yearned to get that buzz and that high again. You know, with my cousins, you know, like, God bless their souls, you know, and I'm so grateful that I am here today. But, you know, when I was drunk, I got that attention from them that I was missing from home, you know. So that's where I lean to, you know, that's where my brothers, you know, I looked at my cousins as my actual brothers. And it meant a lot to me, you know, when we hung out and we drank. You know, I was talking to my wife before I got here tonight, and she said, Burt, you know, be honest, you know, be honest with your alcoholism, be honest with everything. So this is the most honest I'm going to be. This is the most gritty I'm going to be. You know, drinking, you know, it's just, you know, I've been there, done that. Passing out. Every time I drank, I blacked out. You know, I drank till I blacked out. You know, and, you know, it was awesome. You know, I mean, at the time it was awesome. Thinking back now, I'm like, man, you're an idiot. But you know, I became an alcoholic where, you know, I was pissed off when, you know, I didn't have money for beer. I was pissed off when nobody wanted to drink with me. I was upset when nobody wanted to pull out for me. You know, I was down the corner, you know, asking people to pull out for me. You know, asking my aunties, hey, pull out for me. Like, oh, no, you know. Sometimes I would drink my cousins, sometimes I would drink my aunts and uncles, you know. That's just kind of how my life was. You know, moving forward, you know, going back to being a functional alcoholic, I was a great student in high school, you know. I came up with so many excuses for myself, you know, to feel like I didn't have a problem. You know, getting good grades and going to school was my excuse. Like, I don't have a problem. You know, I got good grades. You know, I graduated 7th overall in my high school. But, you know, nobody knew that I was drinking every weekend besides my family members. And, you know, my twin brother, you know, sometimes I think back, because he's a great man, you know, he never had a problem. And sometimes I think back, we're twins, how come he's not alcoholic like me? You know, we're identical twins, he's older than me, but, you know, but it turns out I got, you know, I'm not sure if it's the shorter end of the stick, but, you know, I got the alcoholism in me, you know. And growing up, like I said, me and him would argue a lot, and he would always tell me, like, Burt, you know, slow down, man, don't go out tonight, don't go out tonight. But, you know, at the time, you know, he was still my older brother, and I had a grudge against him. So, you know, I was like, nah, man, I'm going out tonight. You can stay here if you want. He would come out with me sometimes, but just to take care of me. That's pretty much it, you know, to babysit me. So, you know, growing up, you know, I was a functional alcoholic. I came up with every excuse possible in the book, you know, to make it feel like I was not an alcoholic. You know, like I said, good grades, I was a good attitude. I would never really got in trouble. You know, running around in the middle of the night with my cousins, you know, just terrorizing, egging houses, this horrible stuff, you know, just, I look back and I'm like, man, why did I do that, man? But, you know, that was my high school year, you know, from my teenage years, I drank every weekend, still telling myself I don't have a problem. Everybody else around me, especially my twin brother, said, hey, you have a problem. I was like, nah, I don't. So, you know, just I look back, and, my twin brother, we have a very special connection. Whenever I get in trouble, he have a feeling inside of him. Whenever I did something wrong, I messed up, he would call me like, "Hey, Burt, where you at? Where you at?" I'm like, I'm in trouble," and be like, "Hey, man, I felt that. What are you doing?" So I'm drinking. He's like, "Okay, why are you drinking?" There's so much guilt growing up, that I buried it deep, because I was so used to suppressing my emotions. I was so used to that already growing up. I suppressed everything, and I just buried everything deep inside. So in college, when I got into college, same thing, this is what everybody does. You drink in college, you have fun, you party in college. For the average person, it's correct, but for an alcoholic, it's not correct. It's just leads you deeper down a road, down a path, and I can't say why I got hooked on alcoholism. Just that one drink, sometimes I think like, why God? Why did I take that one drink? Why did it hook me so bad that, I missed out on so many opportunities, I missed out on so many things, and, I just ignored so many people, ignored my family members, ignored my twin brother, my parents, even my dad. Like I said, he grew up a horrible alcoholic too, he changed, he told me one story, what changed him was, he was in jail, prison, when my mom was pregnant with me and my twin brother. And he was in his cell, and he looked up in his cell, and he saw a picture of Jesus Christ, a previous person put it there or left it there. He looked up and he saw that, and it was a picture of Jesus Christ. And, from that moment on, he changed his life, and my dad's this, NAC, member, he goes traditional NAC. So, he has it in his medicine box everywhere he goes. And growing up, my religion, my parents always raised us to, respect other religions. My dad always told us, just remember that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, the only Lord and Savior, but respect other religions. So they're very, going through working through the fireplaces what my parents, my family raised us in. But I remember growing up, no disrespect to anybody or any other religions out there. Like I said, I grew up hardcore in NAC. My parents still do it. My brothers and sisters still do it. But I never really had that connection like they did. I did it out of respect. Like, hey, I respect it, but I never had that connection with God like I have now. So, fast forward through college, my college career, drank every day in college, but I was a functional alcoholic. I got good grades, that was my excuse. That was my lie to myself. Like, I don't have a problem. I'm doing society well, and there's points, when I was an alcoholic where many nights I knew I had a problem. I didn't admit to myself. I wake up in the morning, passed out, waking up, where's my wallet at? Where's my keys at? I have a bad headache. Just awful memories, hangovers, just, telling myself every morning, you're not going to do this again. This is the day you're going to stop. This is the day you're going to stop. This is the day you're going to stop. I remember waking up, pouring out 40s, pouring out 30 packs, like this is my last weekend doing this. And telling God, and I look back now, and I broke so many promises to God, man. So many promises I told him, like, hey, this is my last time. 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 Weekend after weekend after weekend, it wasn't my last time, And that's when I really knew that, I had a problem. Yeah, and I know a lot of people say that, when you're alcoholic, you say that a lot. And let me just say too, there's a lot of good men and women in here. You're here for a reason. You're here for a reason. You are here to hear any type of message that God has for you. And this is just my story. But there are many times I broke my promise to God, broke my promise to myself, broke my promise to my loved ones. Many people are hurt, just relapsing and relapsing and relapsing. So go through college. I meet an ex of mine, and straight, raised through NAC girl, and just really great, non-alcoholic, doesn't drink, and I remember meeting her, and I remember, well, before that story, let me just say that I dropped out of college for the first time. God has blessed me so many times to redo stuff over and over, but I always messed it up somehow. So I dropped out of college, just, because I was being an idiot. So, I dropped out of college and I moved to Albuquerque. So I went to college in Phoenix. After Phoenix, I went back to Crown Point, weighed my options and what am I going to do? Went back. So I used to drink a lot with my cousins and my aunties in Crown Point. So every weekend, every day when I dropped out of college, I was always at their place, sleeping at their place, sleeping on the couch, sleeping on the floor, partying every night, every weekend. So, after, I kind of had a wake up call, and I was like, hey, what are you gonna do with your life? So decided to move to Albuquerque with my twin brother. He met a girl, his current, fiance now, that he's been with for a long time. We all moved to Albuquerque, and the same story out there with me. I go out there, I find a job, and end up meeting some friends on social media that I never met before, and I just, and same routine. Started drinking every night. Started drinking every weekend. There's one particular moment. I went to a house party, and I blacked out, and I remember waking up, and I just remember walking back to my apartment, in the middle of the night. I don't remember, but I got jumped by 3 guys, and I remember fighting in Cactus, in Albuquerque, in the school district, or by Union housing areas. There's like little cactuses and stuff through the streets.
Was it on the east side?
I believe so.
The war zone?
Yeah, the war zone. Yeah, dude. So that's where I lived. So I remember walking back home, and I got jumped, and I remember fighting in Cactus. But I was drunk. I didn't feel no pain. I didn't feel nothing. I was completely blacked out. I remember waking up on this curb, just really literally just in my boxers, no shirt, no pants, just my shoes. I felt so humiliated, I felt so ashamed, I felt so guilty. Cactus all over me, just scarry, bloody, I woke up, I remember trying to find my apartment, trying to find back my apartment where I lived, and I lost my phone, lost my wallet, lost everything. So I had no communication, nobody. This is around 6 a.m., maybe like 4 a.m. I just remember the early morning birds chirping, it kind of snapped me out of it. And I saw a little bit of the blue sky. I'm like, oh, wow, it's getting morning. I better snap out of it and find my way home. And there were so many times I just like, hey, man, there's a curb, just lay down and go to sleep. Then I remember thinking, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I got to find home. I got to get back home. I got to get back home. So I remember just walking through cemeteries, walking through everywhere in Albuquerque in the middle of the night. And, I finally found my apartment. I don't know how I found it. I found it. I got back to the apartment, and like I said, I had my keys. I lost everything. I was just with my boxers walking through Albuquerque. And I was so grateful that no cops picked me up or pulled me over or whatever, or nobody called me in. So I luckily I left my window open, so I slid it sideways, crawled through, and I just remember that day, just that morning, I kind of with a bad hangover, and I just, my first experience was God. It was like, God, I'm tired of this. When is this going to end? And I remember, getting dressed and everything, taking out all the cactus out of me. And I walked to a local, gas station, like pick up a payphone, and I put in whatever dollar quarters I had in my pocket. And I called my mom. I was like, hey, Mom. He's like, hey. My brother went out of town, he went back to Crown Point for the weekend or something, so I had the weekend to myself. So when I was alone, it was one of the worst times this stuff happened to me, because I took chances on my own and I did everything on my own. So I remember calling my mom. I was like, hey, this is the first time I admitted to my loved one, I think I have a problem. Everybody already knew it, Like I said, in high school, I would come back home drunk, and my parents would be so pissed off at me, and they would be so upset, and, but they always, my dad was really like, he has to learn his lesson on his own, That's how the only way you can do it is if you learn your lesson on your own. You find God yourself. Nobody else can save you but only God yourself. You got to find him yourself. So my dad and my parents and nobody really, they never really said, hey, let's go to a medicine man, let's go do this, that. So they're just like, no, let him live his life. Whatever consequences he finds, he has to find. Yeah. So, and I remember, like I said, in high school, I just come back home drunk as a skunk, blackout, just not knowing where I was, what I was doing, violent, all the emotions I suppressed as a child came out when I was drunk, all the hate, anger, it came out, I was one of those drunks that I always wanted to fight people just because I held everything in so much. But yeah, going back into, meeting, first time ever to my parents or to my mom, she's like, yeah, I know you have a problem. It's a good thing you finally admitted it. It's like, yeah. So that happened, so I moved back to Crown Point, and I just really became on this high of just, godly high, just like, hey, I feel better, I feel good just meeting these people. My family finally knows, And I met this girl, who's really great, and she's straight arrow, doesn't drink, none of that, doesn't tolerate drinking, she had bad alcoholism in her family as well, so she didn't tolerate any of that. So, I briefly tell her, like, yeah, I used to have a drinking problem, kind of hiding it, when I first started dating her. We became serious, and we became a couple, and we were together for about 7 years. So, after Crown Point, we moved to Albuquerque, went back to Albuquerque. And it was at this point, so, went back to Albuquerque. And I got a job at Walmart, and she was in school at UNM. So I was working and she was going to school, and then this is when I was on a godly high. I was, this is when I was still in AC. So my dad gave me corn pollen, gave me cedar, gave me, fireplace, to take with me out there, and kept telling me, pray for good things, pray for, this and that. So I did that, so finally, God blessed me with a job at Walmart, and I worked at Walmart in Albuquerque for about 3 years until she graduated from UNM. So we decided as a couple to move back, to Farmington. She wanted to teach in Farmington, and at the time I got promotion from Walmart to be a manager at Walmart. So we took it, But going back to Albuquerque, my addiction came back. I just became a better liar. I became a better, yeah. So, there were times, my coworkers would have house parties and stuff, and, they'd invite me, and I would lie to my spouse, like, hey, I got to work late tonight. Really, I went to a house party.
Take off and party?
Yeah, exactly that. So I took off and party, and so it really, I became a better liar. I really became a better liar. So I did all that.
All drunk?
Yeah, well, only when she was gone. Only when she was gone for the weekends. So that happened, and so I became a better liar. Moved back to Albuquerque or Farmington, and I became a manager at Walmart. And with Walmart, the position I had, I was a manager, and I had many associates under me. So I became big-headed. I became prideful, and I became stubborn, and I got paid good money working for Walmart. So I thought this was my true calling. I thought this was God's calling for me. Like, hey, you're gonna be good things are coming your way. To continue to work at Walmart, continue to move up, and I thought my purpose was to be a store manager at Walmart. So I worked hard. Yeah. So I dedicated my life to Walmart, and I put work first before God. Put work first before my spouse. And slowly but surely, everything came crumbling down on me again. Like I said, I started making good money, started going out on weekends, B Lounge, 3RV, the place by the airport, what it's called. Started going out, spending all my money at the bars, spending 500 to 300, 500 a night or weekend, And like I said, I was a functional alcoholic, so I only partied on weekends. During the weekday, I was straight as an arrow. But then again, I covered my addiction so good, that's where everything changed for me again. While I was on this high, I went out one night, and I got pulled over for drinking and driving, and that's when everything really changed for me.
So you got a DUI?
Yep, got a DUI, went to jail, and there's nothing really, this is when God really shows up, is when you're alone by yourself, when nobody's around you, when you're in that cot, looking up, looking in the holding cell, just by yourself, you look up, everybody around you is gone. Nobody's there. Nobody, everybody's upset with you, everybody's mad at you, nobody wants to take care of you, nobody wants to help you, nobody, the only person that's there is God, and that's where God really took me over again,
needs to start thinking.
Oh yeah.
After that.
And there are plenty of times after that too, and one thing I want to express is that I didn't stop lying to God, and I always broke my promises to God again, He was really, I always told him, like, hey, this is last time, but really, I always went back. I know my parents or my family members got frustrated with me, but they always cared about me, but they were frustrated with decisions I was making, and I, like I said, with this testimony, I really look back at, where my life changed, and I really looked at, really started from my childhood, and just really suppressing emotions, and everybody's story is different, you guys all have your own reasons why you do the things you do, or why, you are in recovery. But fast forward, sorry about that. So my relationship ends with my ex, and there I am again, single, still working at Walmart. This time, I'm still getting paid. I got promotion, so now I'm a co-manager at Walmart, one step below a store manager. So
can we get discount?
if I still work there, yeah. If I still work there. And
Holidays?
there you go. And, yeah, like I said, so more money came with me, so I went out even more, partied harder, and I didn't care about anything, bought me a nice truck,
At least you spoke up and you talked in your words. So
Oh yeah.
that's good.
Exactly. And I had many associates under
Get out of
me.
your system.
Oh yeah, that's one thing you gotta do is express yourself. Don't hold anything in. So fast forward, I went back into relapse mode again. I just on high, getting paid well, going out every weekend, buying extravagant things. The one thing I struggle with is financial decisions. I suck at that. So it's something my wife really takes over.
Mechanics and coal all day. It's hard.
Yeah. So really, just my life is going in a downward spiral again.
Well,
Go back into jail again.
keep yourself strong.
Oh, yeah.
Stay strong.
So go back to jail again, and I go back 3 more times to jail. Same thing every time. And with that being said, I really, fast forward, I meet my wife, and my current wife right now, came with 3 kids. So I became an instant family man, and it's something that I never had before, something I always wanted.
Family comes first.
Oh yeah. So, with that, and with that, I had to really make a lot of changes to my life. I had to really, grow up and really, really grow up and really take care of my family, So I talked to God one last time, I told God, hey, I'm done. This is it for me. I don't want to ruin this family. I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
I ruined every relationship I had before that. And, with, my wife, she's lived in church all her whole life, and she has a big heart, and she met Derek and Ginger, with prison ministry, jail ministry, and that's where she was. And it was her that introduced me to Celebrate Recovery. So when I started dating her, she asked me, the first thing she asked me was, "Are you a church goer?" I said, no. I said, no, I'm not,
Now I am.
Celebrate. Yeah. And honestly, I told her, I was like, hey, honestly, like I said, I'm a good liar. So I was like, yeah, I can start going to church only to date you, I was like, I can start going. Little did I know that, this would change my life, little did I know this would change my life. So I started going to Celebrate Recovery with her, started going to church with her, and for the first time in my life, my eyes opened up, and for the first time, I found my religion, I found my connection to God. And it's amazing, where God can take you, man, and it's amazing what He can do for you. It was my wife, I credit her so much because, she has a big heart for alcoholics, and she has a big heart for, people on the streets, alcoholism. It's really her that brought it to my attention. It's really her that, that made myself become honest with myself. We're eating at a restaurant at Farmington, and there's this one alcoholic guy outside drunk, and he was just being belligerent or whatever. And I remember telling her, it's like, oh my God, that guy's a weirdo, or I said something bad. I said something bad. And then she came back at me and she said, why are you saying that? I said, cause, he's been a weirdo. So, you shouldn't say that. I said, why? Because that was you. I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. And that's why I finally took that hit, man. I was like, you know what? I'm an alcoholic, man. I'm an alcoholic.
That could have been you.
Yeah, exactly. And and she was the first one who really got me to admit, honestly, truthfully, and just really an aha moment, like, hey, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. So with that being said, when I admitted that first time, like really, when you get that aha moment, like, hey, man, and you tell God, so many great things happen. I started going to church and everything, and I leave Walmart, and I decide, because with Walmart, like I said, I was at work constantly. I wasn't with my family at home, I was always at work. I was always there. And if you know me, Walmart was my number one. That was my priority throughout most of my adult life when I worked with them. Yeah. So I left Walmart, and it was a scary move for me because that's all I knew, and I had a family to support. So, I leave Walmart and I live off my savings for a little bit for the winter, and then to really try to find God more. So I end up, we go through the holidays. I spend holidays with my family, and then I ended up getting a job at Albertsons because retail is pretty much all I know. So I go get a job at Albertsons, and the pay for Albertsons was so low. I couldn't support my family with it. I'm not used to that low pay. So I ended up leaving back to Walmart again. My old coworkers like, hey, Burt, I want you to come back. So I ended up leaving to Walmart again. And, I thank God for that blessing. Thank God, like, hey, thank you for giving me this opportunity again to support my family, because I was struggling, to support my family. So I get back to Walmart, everything's going great again. And Walmart fires me. I just remember just being so broken, so hurt, because I gave Walmart 7 years of my life. I gave them 7 years of my life, and this is how they ended up treating me. And I was so, so broken. I was driving home, and, I remember calling my wife, and I was like, hey, I lost my job. And this is when my wife was pregnant with my son, my first son. And she's pregnant, and she's due in 2 months or whatever. And, so now I'm really pissed off, and I'm cursing out God. I find myself cursing out God. I find myself, like, God, what are you trying to do, man? I stopped drinking. I got a good family. I'm staying out of trouble. I'm just trying to support my family. It's like, why are you making me lose my job? It's blaming him so much. And then, and so, so I end up, just being unemployed for a little bit. And then my son was born in July. And I remember, I would talk to my wife, like, I don't know what we're going to do. I got 3 kids, one on the way. So my son was born in July, and the day after he was born, I get a call from my current job. I work for Pepsi. I work for Pepsi now. So I applied with Pepsi, and they called me the day after my son was born. It's like, hey, can you come in for an interview? I was like, yeah. So, go down to Aztec, and I get my interview, and I got the job, It's a temporary seasonal position, but this pays good enough for me to support my family. So I take it, and everything's going great, and I'm just like, why, and then this goes back to the story of, God has a purpose for you guys, man. He has a purpose for everybody. And, don't doubt him. Don't curse him out like I did, and good things can come your way, you just got to give.
There's Pepsi for everybody.
Pepsi for everybody. There you go. So I get my job at Pepsi, and I go to church every Sunday, with my wife and my kids, and just praying every day. My relationship with God is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And just everything starts going well, and I kind of find myself back in my childhood situation. So I got 4 kids, now, and we live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Farmington. And I just remember telling my wife, like, hey, I grew up in this life. I remember sharing everything with my cousins and my brothers and sisters. I don't want my kids growing up in the same situation. But I didn't have enough money to get a better place. My wife is a full-time student in college, so she's trying to earn her psychology degree. So, so I'm the main bread maker in my family. So I remember telling my wife, you stay in school, don't drop out. That's your purpose. That's God's purpose for you. And my job is to support my family right now. So I remember, telling my wife, it's like, man, I don't want to grow up like this. I don't want my kids to share rooms, man. I lived through that. That's why I became an alcoholic. I learned to suppress my emotions. Yeah. So I told my wife, like, and I started praying with my kids. At night, every night they tell me to pray for them. So I pray for them. And I remember every night I told God, I was like, God, I pray that you bless me and my family with a better opportunity financially, so we can live a better life. Bless us with what we need. And He has, man. And I remember telling my kids, I was like, just wait, man. God will answer your prayer. And sure enough, fast forward, my son was born, and we're still living in this small 2-bedroom apartment in Farmington. And I get my job with Pepsi, and it's a temporary position, and this new position at Pepsi opens up, and it's a very hard position to get into. So I applied for it, and they gave it to me, and it's a position where pays me better, where I can support my family better. I'm just like, I come back home, tell my wife this, and my wife, if she ever comes up here, gives her testimony, she's gonna have an awesome testimony, probably better than mine. She's been through so much, man. My wife's been through so much. I'm actually husband number 3 for my wife, and
blondes have more fun.
There you go. But if she ever comes up here, you better come up here and give your testimony. If she ever comes to give her testimony, man, her story is amazing. What she's been through. So anyways, I tell my wife this, and I tell my wife, like, hey, I got this position, and I was like, hey, I think we can get a bigger home now, and she's like, but we're both just in awe, this is not normal. We're not used to God's blessing. We're not used to Him, giving us gifts. We're just used to the low end, just, barely scraping by. We don't deserve this. Why do we deserve this? So, at the end of it, when you're really honest with God, you're really honest with yourself, and you look back at your life and you really figure out, I guess my lesson to you guys for what really helped me out was figuring out what triggered me, figuring out what moment in my life really, hurt me the most, what moment in my life really, got me hooked on drinking, because an average person would be like, no, I don't want to drink, that's bad for you. But I was like, yeah, give it to me, man. That's where you got to figure out, that's the hard part, is figuring out, what really triggered you, what really, made you do what you did, and when you find that out and you figure that out, you tell God, like, hey, this is why I'm doing this is why I did this, and man, he does so many amazing things for you, and he'll bless you so much. And when you feel God's love, man, it's love you can't explain anywhere else, and so right now, my wife and I, grateful for Ginger and Derek. Thank you guys for, setting this up. This is my first testimony. I'm just so blessed to be here, so blessed to share it with you guys.
Let it out.
Oh yeah.
Let it out.
And I know a lot of you guys, have different stories than me. Some of it more rough, some of it deeper than mine. But at the end of the day, we all have one God, and our one God will answer your prayers, man. And you don't give up, man. You're going to relapse. I'm going to be the first to say you're going to relapse. I relapsed so many times,
Stay strong.
You stay strong, you don't give up, you don't lose faith, man. And God, like I said, when you're in jail alone, when nobody else is around you, who's there? God's still there. No matter where you go in life. Oh yeah, when you feel like everybody else is giving up around you, God is always going to be there to tell you, okay, I'm still here with you. I'm still here with you. And
stay there, man. Stay in that moment.
And one thing I think it's important for my testimony too is, like I said, I grew up in a NAC family most of all my life, and I don't mean this NAC any disrespect at all, but this is something I want to tell my family members too, is that because I still have cousins and uncles and aunties that still drink, and I want them to see them healed. I want to see them recovered. And let me just say too that behind every addiction is a stronger person. If you're strong enough to take that addiction, you're strong enough to get out of it.
Repeat that again.
If you're strong enough to take that addiction, you're strong enough to get out of that addiction. Addiction is strong, but you're stronger. Behind every addiction, like I said, is a great person, And I believe that, if we can heal a lot of people who are addicted to alcohol or any type of substance out there, you're going to become a strong warrior for God. And that's what we need in this world,
Yes.
That's how we change this world, is we help people become sober, and when people are sober, we come together as unity, we become better people. And my personal experience, that's our biggest epidemic on the reservation is alcoholism or any type of addiction. And which we hear that, man, there's no stopping us as what we can do. I'm just so grateful for Derek and Ginger, man. They're from the outside coming in. I remember going to church service for the first time at Derek's church, at Ginger's church. And I told him, I said, God brought you here for a reason. It sometimes takes outside eyes to see our problem, because like I said, we grew up in this. This is normal to us. We have family members, that are doing this stuff. We're doing this stuff, so it becomes normal for us just to live this way. So it takes outside eyes to see us, to see us like, hey, we need help. We need to hear their cry, we need to hear their cry, and there's so many people out there crying for help, and God's not going to turn his ears. God's going to really help you guys out. And I really encourage you guys to go to church with Ginger and Derek. That's a great church, man. My wife and I should go over there almost every Sunday. We miss one service.
Me too.
But it's a great service, man. And everything's, just with that being said,
You'll accept questions now? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I was just going to say, they're from Chicago. Look what the wind blew in.
There you go.
The windy city.
The brick city. No, it's a brick city.
One thing that really helps me out, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I still get that craving. One thing my wife told me was that, and I really take this honestly, is that once you're an alcoholic, you're always gonna be an alcoholic. But what makes a difference is you saying no to it. I'm always gonna have that craving to drink. I'm always gonna have that memory. What triggers me? You gotta find your triggers. What triggers me is cold air. wintertime is really a trigger for me. That's when I used to drink the most with my cousins and everybody. I used to go outside and like, oh man, it's a cool air.
For you to,
You want it?
Yeah, you know.
Good warm
That's for you to right there.
You want a good warm clothes?
There you go. No, you know, you find your triggers, and you know, you
son of a fine body.
Turn up the heat.
Your stomach, it'll be warm.
Son of a
After that,
to you.
and you know,
like you said, you know,
yeah.
it's not good to trigger.
Yeah, you know, when you get smarter and you become close to God, God will show you your triggers. God will give you power over your triggers. You know,
Amen.
He'll be like, hey man, this is coming up. You know, remember this, remember that, and God will never give up on you, man. He will never give up on you. He will never turn around. It's hard, yeah. It's extremely hard, man. It's really hard. You know, the hardest part is telling him. The hardest part is breaking his promise. The hardest part is promising him again. You know, but you know, God never turns his ear, man. I broke that promise so many times, and here I am, man. God bless me with a good job, bless me with a good family, bless me with a good house, you know, and I'm just like, there you go, man, you know, and
I got a good job and everything, but it's just my drinking that's fucking me up.
yeah, man, that's what
I didn't
you.
even say it like
No, you're good, man. You know, it's honest, man. You know, it's hard. You know, it's hard. It's hard. You know, and there's people out there that look at you, and the people out there that say, "Hey, man," that write you off right away. But you know, don't give up, man. God will never write you off. God will never give up on you guys. And you know, so when I have triggers and everything, one verse that really sticks out to me that I always remind myself on is this Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that just follows me everywhere. You know, when you're alone in jail, you know, God is the only one there for you. You know, so, you know, not your family members, just you and God. And you know, one thing that Derek preached on a couple of Sundays ago was admitting that you're guilty. You know, he preached on admitting that you're guilty, and that's really stuck out to me, because when I first got pulled over with my DWI, I was like, I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. I'm gonna beat this. I don't deserve this. I'm not going to jail. I'm not gonna do all this or that. I'm not gonna go to the program. I'm not gonna get my interlock. I was always denying it. You know, I paid a lawyer $4,000 to prove my innocence, and you know, really, I just got tired of it. And God spoke to me. He's like, no, Burt, you're guilty, man. Admit you're guilty, and you'll be better off. And you know, that's really sometimes you know, God will say, hey man, admit you're guilty, you know, pay your dues. And now I'm you know, went through, I have a DUI, but that didn't stop me from getting a job at Pepsi. It didn't stop me from getting a job anywhere. You know, there's opportunity out there, you know, and it's not the end of the world, man. You know, that's just God's blessing, man. He'll bless you when you really mean it. You know, just don't give up on him. So with that being said, just thank you guys for hearing my testimony. Thank you, Derek and Ginger again. Thank you guys. All right.